Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Shane here for another session in the Blanket Fort recording booth. Today we're going to talk about a topic that I think a lot of people find kind of confusing, myself included some days, I'm not going to lie, is using compression, normalization, and amplification, and why you'd want to use any of those things. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab a sample audio bit I did a little while ago, and I noticed looking back at it now that I didn't have my interface dialed in quite where I want it, and there's not quite enough volume to the piece. And we're going to show why you might want to use that. We're also going to record some samples to show where, some of these other tools come in. So the very first one, we're going to grab a chunk of audio that I created, as a joke for a few friends. So we're going to go we're going to go open a file from Audacity, and I'm going to go find a very specific thing. And what this was an audio I recorded for some friends I ride motorcycles with. We were doing a winter breakfast just to kind of get out and about. The first thing you're going to notice is we're really not using all the available waveform space we have. This piece is a little quiet. Now I have taken all the noise out of it, so if we give this a quick listen. Ride Ottawa's Beat the Winter Blues Breakfast. January. So you're going to notice that there's not quite enough punch to it. It's kind of quiet. It almost sounds like I'm sitting back in my chair saying, hey, you want to come out for breakfast? As opposed to, it was supposed to be more of a kind of a pushy sales car, kind of, welcome to Ride Out, So to get that kind of more punch to it, we've got to get this, a little more volume to this to give it a little bit more urgency to it. So one of the things we can do is we can select this, and this is where we talk about one of two things. We're either going to look at normalization here, which serves one purpose, or we can look at amplification. And we're going to look at what each one does differently. So we go under effects, and the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to grab normalization. And what we want to do is normalize the audio to -1 dB. That means that we want to use as much of this available waveform space as we can. So when we hit apply to this, you're going to notice that the waveform just doubled in size. Now what happens when we listen to this back? We're going to go back and listen to that first couple seconds again. Ride Ottawa's Beat the Winter Blues Breakfast, January 22nd. So the first thing you're going to notice over that first waveform is we really picked up some volume. And that's what normalization does. It says, hey, you know what? I want to get my volume levels up to a better average power. So this did a good job of that. So, we've got it a little more of a punch. So if you were a little too quiet, this is a great trick. Now, what if I want a little bit more out of this? So if I take a look here, I'm not bouncing off the limiters anywhere. Like I'm not hitting the limits. I'm not clipping. I can give this a little more. So this is where we might want to amplify it. And for those of you that have seen my removing breaths and basic audio techniques, we would normally use amplification in a negative way to remove something. In this case, we want to add to it. So we're going to go into volume and compression, and this time we're going to choose amplify. And we're going to amplify it, let's see what happens when we pick the default. We got a little bigger. That's not so bad. So now if we listen to it again. Ride Ottawa's Beat the Winter Blues Breakfast, January 20th. Okay, so this is kind of cool. Now, what if we want to look at something, maybe I want to be able to tuck these peaks in and bring it up even more, because some of these ones I'm really leaning into, and we've got some, heavier audio. So if we go listen to this for a second. So there's something more to do than stare at your phone. So I got loud and kind of got into it, but there's not a really, punchy piece of work there. So, this is where we actually start talking about compression. And the way I want you to think about compression is, when you come up to the garbage can and it's kind of full, but you can fit more in there, and you take your foot and you squish it down to make more room. Well, that's kind of what we're doing with compression. With compression, we're taking that stuff that's filling up the top layer and squeezing it down just a little bit so that we can fit more in our box. We can fit more waveform in our release. So we're going to go ahead and we've selected we'll go ahead and select the whole piece of work. And this time we're going to pick effect. And this time we're going to go and grab compressor. And I'm just leaving this at default settings. You can play with these because everybody's voice needs a different treatment. I don't want to put something on this and have you go, oh yeah, that video said I have to do this. No, you need to play with this and find what sounds right for your room, your voice, your piece of work. So you notice we got bigger again. Now, if I were to get more aggressive with that compression, what you would see is that this piece right here, these peaks would stay at about the same place, but everything around it would come up. So let's go back and listen to that opening piece again now that we've kind of thrown a lot of stuff at this. Right Ottawa's beat the Winter Blues breakfast. January 22nd, 9. So we've got a little bit more volume to it. We haven't really heard it. Now what I want to do is record a piece. I'm going to just record a live piece, and we're going to get a little closer to the margin. So I want to get a bigger variance in the voice presence so that we can get a better idea how these work. So we'll go back to our other Audacity session. Do you need to get out of the house? Has it been a long winter? Well, let us take the chill out. Okay, so you can see here now, I've kind of really pushed this out, and I'm almost clipping out on this, so I've got to be really careful trying to get more volume out of this piece, and this is where compression really shines. So now what I can do is I can go ahead and I can select this piece of work, and I'm going to go ahead and grab my compression piece. I'm going to say compress, and threshold, again, we'll leave it a default. Play with these and see how they work for you because everybody's a little different. But you'll notice my peaks came down and my main bodies went up. So now we go ahead and listen to this piece. Do you need to get out of the house? Has it been a long winter? Well, let us take the chill out. So this really soft, let us take the chill out, still has a soft tone to it, but it doesn't get lost. It's not super quiet where we're trying to remember what I said. And that's where you use a tool like compression. You squish down the big peaks to be able to make the rest of your work fuller. I hope that helps some of you out. It's kind of the best way I can explain how you kind of use some of these tools. And you have to remember that you want to use these really sparingly. You can do some really awful things to your work. So one of the things I'm going to do right now is show you what happens when you overdo it, just kind of for reference. So we're going to take this same piece of work and go off the deep end. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into our effects, and we're going to grab that compressor. And we're going to say, you know what? Let's bring our threshold. We're going to make this kick in a whole lot sooner. And we're going to pretend our noise floor is a lot lower. And we're going to go to, let's say, a 4-to-1 ratio. Now watch what happens to our work. So we've changed a couple settings, and I really recommend when you try to learn this, you change one at a time. Did you see how much that waveform changed? Let's undo that for a second. There's some pretty solid definition in this piece. You can see our lows, you can see our highs. And then, if we go back and we repeat that compressor section, wow, but now what happens when we listen to this? Do you need to get out of the house? Has it been a long winter? Well, let us take the chill out. Okay. All of a sudden, there's no variance in the piece. It's kind of all at the same level. So I've kind of squished the top down so much that everything fits and nothing stands out. And these are the kind of things you have to watch for when you work with all of these tools. They can all do wonderful things for you, but they can all really hurt your work. So I'm going to, while we're in the habit of saying what happens if I go too far, let's, go back to an effect we use all the time, and let's, go find, here's our noise sample, and we're going to go grab it, and we're going to do our noise reduction like we do in most of our work. We're going to capture the whole piece, and we're going to go ahead and apply that noise reduction. If you haven't seen that video yet, I explain this much better in a different video, but it's safe to say we grab our noise sample and then we apply noise reduction based on that sample across the whole piece. Oh my God, that still didn't get everything, let's say, I've still got this, but we're not going to use that yet. So now we go ahead and we give this a listen. Do you need to get out of the house? Has it been a long winter? Well, let us take the chill out. That's still kind of a workable piece of audio. I find it's kind of a little too loud at this point because there's not enough variance, but that could be what the piece calls for. If that's what you were looking for, you found it. Welcome to Two Large Dogs Upstairs. I'm not cutting that out. I've gotten too far now. So we go back and play with our other tools. And we're like, You know what? I think there's still some noise in there. So let's go grab our noise gate. And we're going to say, okay, let's noise gate this. And we apply our noise gate. And now we're going to go listen again. Do you need to get out of the house? Has it been a... and let's say you listen to that and you're like, oh my God, no, like we still got to get more out of there. So let's grab another noise sample just for fun here. And we're going to go effect. And we're going to go noise reduction. And we're going to get our noise profile. And then we're going to apply it again. Effect. And we're going to try and do some more noise reduction. And now let's take another listen. Do you need to get out of the house? Has it been a long winter? Well, let us take the chill out. You guys noticing how the tone of my voice in that piece changed with that last noise reduction? And that's the danger of post. And this is why you want a quiet workspace if you can manage it. But noise reduction does really help you get to a better place. But the more you apply these effects, the more it changes what your output sound is. So this is a great thing, again, where just try it. You know, apply the same effect 16 times and see what too much does, or get really aggressive on the settings and see what it does. There is no replacement for experience. So by playing these with all of these tools, and don't be afraid to pick any tool in there and see what it does for you. Because the very worst case, you have to hit undo and take away the effect. But then you understand how you can take advantage of some of these effects. You can apply things like equalizers, and we'll go into some of these more advanced features in a little bit later video. But don't be afraid to try an effect and go, hey, what does this do for me? Because there's a whole lot of things we can do in here. This is a very powerful tool, even if we don't need most of them. Don't be afraid to go, hey, what does this do for me? Because the worst case, you just hit Control-Z or go up into Edit and undo your last thing, and the damage is gone. Don't be afraid to experiment. That's it for today, guys. See everybody in the next video. Have yourself a great one.